네, 버나드 케인과 함께하는 진짜 미국 주식 시간 구글링에서도 나오지 않던 그런 정보들 저희가 이 시간에 꽉꽉 담아드리고 있습니다. 자, 오늘은 커피 이야기를 해볼 텐데 저도 커피를 참 좋아합니다. 우리나라 사람들 커피 정말 소비가 굉장한데 전 세계 대표적인 커피 브랜드 스타벅스가 있습니다. 이 스타벅스는 정말 고정 수요층이 탄탄한 기업인데 일단 기업에 대한 설명 먼저 부탁드리겠습니다.
Starbucks is a great brand. Everybody loves their coffee. If you look out over the past 30 years, when Starbucks came public back in the 80s, it was already profitable back then with just incredibly small store count. Over the last 30 years, they've opened over 30,000 locations. They do it consistently where the sales per location are always increasing, it's profitable, and they continue to find new ways to grow the top line through opening new locations and then generating increasing sales dollars per location. Now they're going to try to open the next 22,000 stores over the next 9 years. They plan to have 55,000 locations by 2030. Much of this growth is going to come from China, but they also have learned a lot through COVID and the pandemic and will open more delivery-only locations everywhere. They still want to be the place where people go and hang out and drink their coffee, but they also want to optimize for profitability where it makes sense. Maybe they can't operate a huge piece of real estate in the middle of Manhattan or in the center of Seoul, but maybe they can rent this little tiny space that can fulfill delivery-only orders and takeout-only orders and improve their profit margin in those locations where it makes sense. These takeout-only locations can be optimized for profitability. Starbucks was pressured to close these in-person stores and shift its focus towards drive-through and contactless transactions during the height of COVID. The bright side of this is that the company retained a lot of that drive-through volume so far this year in 2021, which bodes well, I think, for the launch of similar stores that focus exclusively on grab-and-go ordering. Today, drive-through and mobile order and pay account for 70% of all transactions, which is up about, say, 15% from before the pandemic ever started in 2019.
네, 팬데믹 이후로 또 드라이브 스루는 소비 증가율이 있었다 이런 부분들을 짚어주셨습니다. 또 스타벅스는 커피 브랜드지만 커피뿐만이 아니라 다양한 MD 상품들도 구성하고 있기 때문에 뭐 텀블러라든지 또 다른 수요 식품, 샌드위치 이런 것들도 굉장히 많은 인기를 끌고 있거든요. 그래서 다양한 또 루트에서 수익을 창출하기 위해서 어떤 노력을 하고 있는지도 짚어주시죠.
Starbucks is very, very good about making more money off its customers over time. And they've added, on top of the fact that they've done the coffee drinks and all that, they've added accessories like coffee mugs. They've also added things for kids because they realize that parents often go there with their children. The cold drinks capitalize on people who don't want hot coffee in the summer. And they've added breakfast and lunch items to complement their coffee and coffee drinks. They're also really good about monetizing their customers. As good as any tech company I've seen, Starbucks is good at expanding their relationships with their customers. They get occasional one-off customers that just that pass through their stores, but the bulk of their business comes from repeat buyers. My big question is, where is this going to go looking forward over time into the future? Just like when we talked about Disney, I'm really confident that Starbucks is going to generate good income for the company over time. But we got to ask the question, is this a stock that's going to outperform the market over the next 3 to 5 years? Because what are we really trying to do? We're really trying to put together a portfolio of 15 to 25 stocks that not only generate good returns, but outperform the stock market as a whole over the next 3 to 5 years.
네, 스타벅스는 최근에 이 노조의 운동 그리고 커피값 인상이라는 이슈 때문에 굉장히 많은 집중을 받았었는데 앞으로 어떤 이슈를 가지고 스타벅스라는 주식을 좀 바라보면 좋을지도 한번 짚어주시죠.
I wonder if Starbucks and their investors in Starbucks are relying too much on future growth in China. I still think that that's a little bit more problematic. The country is a little bit different than every other country in the rest of the world. Can we really forecast that they're going to contribute as much as North America does to the bottom line returns? Too much uncertainty, I think, is in that basket of new stores in China. Starbucks is committing also, in addition, separately from this, $20 billion towards share repurchases and increasing dividends over the next 3 years. That sounds great, okay? But I really think that stuff is just okay in the short run, but it's not a great reason to look for significant outperformance over a 5-year plus window. Why are they doing this, you have to ask yourself. Obviously, they think the stock is too cheap, or they've got reasons different than that with respect to management. So often it's done because management has incentives that are based on short-term stock price performance. And that's just, we want things that grow revenue, because I've talked about this before. When we grow revenue, and I think that to me is the biggest factor of finding stocks that outperform the market, revenue growth exceeding expectations. Recent news also is that Starbucks employees at a New York State store can form a union per the National Labor Relations Board, which is our overseeing body that looks at unions and companies that either have or don't have unions. And I think Starbucks' union drive was most likely spurred by barista burnout from mobile orders, because they had too many mobile orders and it's too tough to do, and they probably have slightly less staff because of the COVID impact. Another thing, since Kevin Johnson joined Starbucks as president and CEO in 2017, and that's over the transition when Howard Schultz, who founded the company and has been its president and CEO and chairman over the last 20 years, stepped down in 2018, the company's valuation has grown by $39 billion, which is about a 45% increase. Yet the stock, when you look at it from 2017, has not really outperformed the NASDAQ since then. And another thing that's really interesting is that Kevin Johnson only owns, and I don't mean only in a derogatory fashion, only owns $81 million worth of Starbucks stock. Yet he made $19 million and $15 million during 2019 and 20. To me, this is not a good example of committed insider management ownership. During those years, Johnson raked in $44 million in total compensation. His latest pay package, which includes a $50 million retention award and a $1.86 million bonus, was rejected by Starbucks shareholders. This is a rare occurrence. The vote is technically non-binding. The company still gets to make the final compensation decision. But a no vote is not a good sign. It signals to me, and I think to many other people, that those shareholders think that the executives are overpaid or they're unhappy with the company's direction. Only 10 S&P 500 companies have had shareholder rejection of pay raises in the last year. So this is not a company strategy that ties itself to the individual investor. They're trying to get paid on the backs of the individual investor. Now, Howard Schultz still owns 33 million shares of Starbucks, and that's probably at $100 a share, that's probably $3 billion. But he's not active in management since 2018 when he resigned from being chairman.
네, 스타벅스의 역대 히스토리를 좀 짚어주신 후에 또 관련된 이슈들까지 짚어주셨습니다. 자, 스타벅스에 대해서 좀 직접적으로 투자를 해보고 싶은데 어떤 위치에서 어떤 가격에 들어가면 좋을지가 굉장히 궁금합니다. 차트를 보면서 함께 분석해 주시죠.
Well, Starbucks, just off the top right now, Starbucks, due to their ability to make money, is a good stock to buy on significant drawdowns because they generate returns. The March 2020 sell-off at the start of COVID, at the start of the COVID downturn in the market was such an opportunity. But without that attractive entry price, the stock has struggled to become a market outperformer. Yes, it continues to go higher, but the overall market rallied significantly. And if you think about this, since the beginning of 2017, when Kevin Johnson was brought on board and 1 year before Howard Schultz stepped down, the stock has been an underperformer. So let's take a look at what the stock charts look like. I took a look right here. This is a 5-year analysis of Starbucks. The first chart, Starbucks is in black and the NASDAQ is in blue. And you can see that over time, Starbucks did okay. And then in the last, say, since the beginning of the pandemic, even though Starbucks was a great purchase down there, the stock market rallied more than Starbucks did. Now, this chart has a lot of arrows on it, and it's a little complex. But we've shown this chart before. The top clip is the Starbucks stock price over the last 5 years. The bottom clip is the Starbucks comparison to the NASDAQ index as a whole. And what we can see is that, generally speaking, there are periods where we see these black vertical lines where on the bottom clip, Starbucks starts to outperform the NASDAQ and that ratio goes higher. And I've showed a couple of opportunities there. If we go back and we look at the red circles, the red circle was what I was talking about with respect to purchasing Starbucks on that COVID decline. If you look at the top chart, yes, that was a good purchase. Yes, we did rally. But when you circle that same spot on the bottom chart, you can see that from that period, Starbucks was underperforming the market, and it continued to underperform the market. And if we look at a 5-year window, we can see on the top clip, my purple thick line, my purple thick arrow, the stock is definitely going up. But don't forget, the stock market has rallied significantly. So when I go back and I compare it to the stock market as a whole, this stock is an underperformer because we go from the top left to the bottom right. What we want to see on that bottom clip is that ratio continuing to increase over time because that's evidence of a fact of a stock that is outperformed. When we take a look at Starbucks and we say, where has it been over time? And I looked at the last 20 years here. We can see periods on the bottom clip of substantial outperformance. That's 2 purple arrows going up, and we can see on the top that those stocks really did well. The red arrows that are going opposite directions are what we just showed on that last chart. So we can see that Starbucks, even though it's made great money, has not been a stock market outperformer, even though the stock has rallied. Now, in that bottom clip, I've also done a black rectangular box. And that black rectangular box was when Howard Schultz was running the company and not Kevin Johnson. Since that black rectangular box, Kevin Johnson has been running the company. So I think that if you think about it, since 2004, Starbucks' valuation relative to the NASDAQ was only lower than it currently is at the time of the big market decline in 2008.
네, 스타벅스에 대한 차트를 보면서 설명을 듣고 돌아왔습니다. 항상 말씀을 해주시는 게 좋은 종목을 한 5년 정도 장기 투자를 하는 게 좋다. 특히나 그 종목이 나스닥을 능가한다면 말이다. 이렇게 좀 전략을 세워주시는데 앞으로 5년 동안 스타벅스의 주가가 뭐 3배, 4배까지 좀 뛸 수 있는 그런 포인트가 있을까요?
If Starbucks is going to grow 3 to 4 times over the next 5 years from now, I think that's got to be because revenues expanded substantially more than expectations. The market already thinks they're going to go to 55,000 stores. The market also thinks that they're going to be more profitable in these grab-and-go, delivery-only stores. I'm not necessarily sure that that's going to be the case. I'm wondering, there's points in time, if we think about McDonald's and where McDonald's went in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, McDonald's was a clear market outperformer. But to see continued decade after decade growth, once you start to mature and people have that, where are they going to get their new customers from outside of China? And I don't really know. The other thing is how expensive is it at Starbucks? It's fairly expensive. Can they continue to ask for more and more of your money? That's the generation of revenue growth, and not just continuing to have the same kind of growth level, but acceleration of growth. I don't know if they can do that. I'm going to bet they don't.
네, 오늘의 종목은 스타벅스였습니다. 많은 분들이 사랑하는 커피 기업이고요. 오늘 이 기업에 대해서 자세한 설명 들어봤습니다. 또 실시간으로 이런 이야기들 나눠보고 싶으시다면 문자 받는 사람 샵 0082번으로 버니의 미국 주식이라고 검색하고 들어와 주시면 되겠고요. 유튜브 서울경제TV에도 다시 보기 언제든지 시청하실 수 있습니다.